In 1951, Time magazine named a 69-year-old Iranian lawyer Man of the Year. 2 years later, the CIA helped overthrow him. His name was Mohammad Mossadegh. He was Iran's democratically elected prime minister. And the reason he was removed wasn't communism. It wasn't national security. It was oil. Specifically, British oil. Today, in May 2026, the United States is blockading Iranian ports. American warships are escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's supreme leader was killed in February. The world is asking how we got here. The answer starts in 1953, with a coup most Americans have never heard of, and a decision that's still shaping the news this morning. This is precedent. Here is what happened, in the order it happened. April 1951. Iran's parliament votes unanimously to nationalize its own oil. For 50 years, a single British company had controlled every barrel of Iranian crude. They paid Iran a tiny royalty. They took the rest. Iranian workers in the oil fields lived in mud huts while British executives lived in air-conditioned compounds. Mossadegh ended it. He told the British company to leave. Britain's response was to ask America for help overthrowing him. President Truman said no. He thought overthrowing a democratic government to protect a British oil company was the kind of thing the Soviets did. Then Truman left office. Eisenhower came in. In August 1953, the operation went forward. It was called Ajax. It cost roughly $1 million. Its decisive phase unfolded over several days in Tehran after months of planning, and it set in motion every major development between the United States and Iran for the next 73 years, including the war happening right now. To understand why, you have to understand who Mossadegh was. Mohammad Mossadegh was not a revolutionary. He was an aristocrat. He was educated in Switzerland. He held a doctorate in law. He spoke French, English, Russian, and Arabic. And his entire political career was built on one idea, that Iran should control Iran. For most of the early 20th century, Iran did not control Iran. Britain did. Through a company originally called the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, later renamed Anglo-Iranian, and known today as BP. The terms of the deal were extraordinary. Iran owned the oil in the ground. Britain owned everything that happened after the oil came out of the ground. Britain set the price. Britain kept the books. Iran was not allowed to audit the books. In a typical year, Britain made more in taxes from Iranian oil than Iran made from selling it. When Mossadegh became prime minister in April 1951, he did something no Iranian leader had done before. He nationalized the oil. Britain's response was to blockade Iran. They froze Iranian assets. They convinced every other oil-producing country to refuse to buy Iranian crude. They threatened to invade. The British Foreign Secretary called Mossadegh a wild man. Mossadegh's response was to break diplomatic relations with Britain and shut every British embassy in Iran. That was when Britain came to Washington. The British changed their pitch for the new American president. They stopped talking about oil. They started talking about communism. They told Eisenhower's CIA that Mossadegh was a Soviet stooge, that Iran was about to fall to Moscow, that the only way to save Iran was to remove him. It wasn't true. Mossadegh was an Iranian nationalist who hated the Soviets almost as much as he hated the British. But the pitch worked. There is a complication worth naming. By the summer of 1953, Mossadegh's domestic position had weakened. His coalition was fracturing. Key allies had defected over his use of emergency powers. The economy was collapsing under the British embargo. He had begun relying on the Tudeh, Iran's Communist Party, for street protection at rallies. The coup succeeded partly because of these real internal divisions, not pure foreign imposition. But the operation itself was American. In the summer of 1953, the CIA sent a man named Kermit Roosevelt, the grandson of Theodore Roosevelt, into Tehran. Roosevelt was the on-the-ground operative. The plan itself had been developed over months by CIA officer Donald Wilbur, working with British intelligence. The budget was roughly $1 million. Roosevelt and his team bought newspaper editors. They bought clergymen. They hired men to riot in the streets pretending to be communists, then hired other men to riot pretending to fight them. They paid Iranian generals to refuse Mossadegh's orders. The first attempt failed. Mossadegh's intelligence service caught the plot, and the Shah fled the country. Roosevelt regrouped, ran the operation again, and on August 19, 1953, succeeded. Mossadegh was arrested. The young Shah returned to Tehran on an American plane. He would rule for the next 26 years, propped up by American weapons, American intelligence, and American money. Time magazine's Man of the Year died under house arrest in 1967. Now look at what came after. The Shah ruled Iran as a dictator for 26 years. He used a secret police force, trained in part by the CIA, to torture and kill his political opponents. By the 1970s, Iranians who had once seen America as a friend now saw America as the country that had stolen their democracy. In 1979, they revolted. The Shah fled. A cleric named Khomeini took power. American diplomats were taken hostage in Tehran for 444 days. And the central grievance, the thing every Iranian revolutionary cited, the thing taught in every Iranian school for decades after, was 1953. The 1953 coup did not directly cause the 1979 revolution. The Shah's own actions, the oil shocks of the 1970s, his secret police, his rapid modernization that alienated the bazaar and the clergy, all of those mattered. But 1953 supplied the rhetorical foundation. It was the original sin in the Iranian revolutionary narrative. The hostage crisis, the Iran-Iraq War, the proxy wars in Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, Syria, the 2026 strikes that killed Khamenei, the blockade happening this week. You can draw a line through all of it back to a 4-day operation in August 1953, $1 million budget, an aristocratic Iranian lawyer who refused to let Britain set the price of his country's oil, and a CIA that decided that was a problem worth solving. History doesn't repeat itself, but it sets a precedent. Subscribe to Precedent for new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.